I've noticed this really strong spiritual connection people have with butterflies. People don't understand how beautiful nature can be just on its own.
These places are just havens for habitat and nectar and everything.
What it does is it gives the butterflies a place to go where they can breed, they can lay their eggs, where they can feed, to live before they start their migrations.
I mean, we really are keeping a lot of our biodiversity alive by having these spaces, and they're just super important.
This is such a beautiful piece of land. What's the future of it? Just in Utah alone, there's over 200 species of butterflies. And it looks like it's not that diverse here and it's just a barren desert. But even in the desert ecosystem here, there is a huge diversity of butterflies that are able to adapt and make this place home.
Now, the way butterflies help the plants, what they do, they're walking around and they're getting covered with the plant's pollen. It sticks to their legs, sticks to their, sticks to all their body parts. And then when they fly to the next plant, they're actually pollinating the next plant because it's falling off them. Sticks to them on one plant, lands on another plant, and that's how the plants get pollinated.
I raised monarch butterflies. I have a science background, and so I used to collect butterflies when I was a kid. There was a spot on our way home from school as we walked home from school that we would find them. And so I've always had an interest in them, and I think they're beautiful, and I know they're endangered, and I feel like anything we can do to help get these, get more butterflies to survive. It takes 4 to 5 days usually for the little caterpillars to hatch, and once they hatch...
It depends on the butterfly, but in general, about 3 weeks for them to slowly double in size from this really tiny caterpillar into a fully grown. Usually they max out about 2 inches. Monarchs can get up to 3 inches. They will grow for about 3 weeks, and then they will form their J shape. They'll be in a J shape for about a day, and that's when you know that they're ready to form their chrysalis. The word chrysalis comes from the Greek word krios, which means gold. And a lot of chrysalis have this gold pattern on them. This is a monarch chrysalis. You can definitely see the gold on these ones. They're stunning. In the meantime, they're just gonna be literally melting down into like a green alien goo, where their DNA changes, they completely change their form, and right when these chrysalis are about to emerge, you'll see the outer casing of the chrysalis. It's paper thin, it's wafer thin, and you can see the fully formed butterfly. Particularly, you can see the wings that have formed.
So nature is nature, and most of the time you get a beautiful butterfly, but every once in a while you'll get a butterfly, and as it comes out of its chrysalis, maybe it can't fully come out of the chrysalis. I've had a butterfly kind of get stuck in the chrysalis. It doesn't really fully come out. And I think that one we kind of helped it out eventually, and its wings just never fully developed. It never was able to fully develop its wings. Or sometimes they'll come out and their wings, one wing will be really small, kind of like Nemo, and one will be big, and they can't really fly. Or they come out and their wings are a little crumpled, or, they never really fully stretch out and they'll stay bent.
But they literally change their DNA. They go from a little crawling grub into an adult butterfly that has wings and eats honey and can travel thousands of miles.
Just the mere
transformation journey that a butterfly goes on can be really impactful to someone. A lot of people will tell me, man, I just feel like I'm stuck and I'm just in this cocoon waiting to emerge as a butterfly and, like, you know, have my business be successful or find the spouse of my dreams or whatever it is. So we like to give people that experience, that impactful journey that butterflies go on, and help people experience that for themselves.
The eggs that I find later and that hatch later in the fall tend to be bigger butterflies, and they're the ones that will fly away.
They will be ready to fly out, and they can live for, some butterflies only live for a couple days. For painted ladies and monarchs and other migratory butterflies, in the fall time, instead of living for a couple weeks, they'll go through this incredible change where they will actually have a super generation that will live for up to 6 months and travel those thousands of miles across continents in order to find their overwintering grounds. And they'll go through sexual diapause where they don't finish maturing, but they will actually wait and go on to their journey. And then once spring starts to roll around, they'll finish their sexual maturity, they'll pair up, and they'll lay eggs on the way back. And they won't actually make their migration all the way back to where they started, but they'll lay eggs along the way. And so that's those southern areas of the US, northern Mexico, are super important places, especially for milkweed, because there has to be milkweed there at the right time for those monarchs to lay their eggs on, so that the successive generations can make their way back up north. And they'll go all the way from Central America all the way up into southern Canada. So these butterflies have quite the journey, and they're so resilient and honestly inspiring. Like, they're so cool.
The way the native butterflies move is very important, along waterways often.
One of the ways around Conservation Garden Park that we support the butterflies, their migration, and their food is we leave a couple of plants up that are typically considered weeds through the valley.
One negative of that with the monarchs, for example, is humans have been waging war on milkweed because it spreads for a long time, and that has led to a huge decrease in the milkweed population across the entire United States.
Some of the milkweed maybe along some of the canals and things like that could possibly be sprayed. You never know. Make sure they find milkweed to feed these caterpillars that's pesticide free. Otherwise, it doesn't work very well.
And it's only just now starting to rebound, where we're getting people who understand how important milkweed is. They're starting to plant it in their yards and their park strips, and city governments aren't banning them, but some city governments, including here in Utah, still have them banned. So write to your city council and tell them to unban the ability to plant milkweed on city property, and that way we'll have more milkweed around. For anyone who wants to plant milkweed to help the monarchs, this is your shot. Swamp milkweed is so great. It's native here to Utah. It's native to a lot of the US, but especially here to Utah. The other main variety here in Utah is gonna be showy milkweed. It grows really tall and lanky. It's super drought tolerant, but it will spread like the devil, which is perfect if you're trying to help the butterflies. The showy milkweed is great for open fields and ditches and kind of just general public space, but for backyards, swamp milkweed is really great. Monarchs are pretty difficult for us to raise because they're disease prone as butterflies. There's a very common protozoan parasite called OE. OE is reliant on monarchs for its life cycle. And in really small amounts, it's not that big a deal, but as OE starts to build up, or if there's a really highly contaminated individual, it can decrease the probability that that monarch will survive, decrease the chance that it will migrate, and it has to be passed down from adult to egg. A butterfly lands on here that's infected with OE and just drops 1 or 2 or 5 or whatever, just a few spores on the plants, and then it leaves. And then another butterfly comes by and lays the egg on the milkweed, and there's still that protozoan parasite and infects a new individual. And so in areas where your tropical milkweed is not gonna freeze and completely die back, so Utah is not one of those places. It's totally gonna die back every single winter. But in more tropical, subtropical, coastal places, some people think that the milkweed that is not dying back and leaving OE parasite spores on it is what's partially contributing to the OE outbreak and the monarch decline. The queen butterfly is a closely related butterfly to the monarch. Queen butterflies used to be much more abundant here in Utah, but I've never seen a queen butterfly except for when I went to Florida. And they also eat milkweed, and so that's another butterfly that is in dire need of help, but it is not as well known as the monarchs are. And so it arguably needs a lot more help than the monarchs, but they eat the same host plant, and planting milkweed is gonna help both species of butterflies.
Because you hear about milkweed quite a lot. One thing that people will do is they'll just go out and buy milkweed and think that that is all that they're going to need. You definitely need to have more than just milkweed. Milkweed does not attract them at the right times. You really need to have more biodiversity. So having things early in the spring, having things late, getting a lot of diversity going on is a huge boon to all pollinators.
When you get into these spaces with a little bit more green, a little bit more nature, it can inspire people to make better decisions to help us take care of our environment a little bit more. But if it's developed into houses, you're gonna see like invasive house sparrows and invasive Eurasian collared doves. And all of this diversity, all of these birds, and the birds is just what you see on the surface. The birds is gonna be an indicator of all the bugs, all the plants, all the other diversity of life around here. And anyone who owns a house, there's probably a front yard and there's a park strip. Yard grass isn't the most diverse habitat for birds, bees, and butterflies.
Changing out someone's landscape is a good way to get involved. Here at Jordan Valley Water, we offer classes to teach people how to do this. We try to offer classes that kind of teach the why that we do this. And we offer money as part of programs that people can come take advantage of the classes, learn what they're going to do, help them get a design together for it, and then we can help pay them to install it at a decent rate. So it really is an encouragement for people to be able to get involved and do something like this with their landscape. This is the best way for the people to get involved, like just the community at large. You have a yard, you have a ton of grass. A lot of that could be removed, scaled back, and in its place put in a series of plants that actually attract a lot more biodiversity than the current lawn, which is kind of a barren wasteland for most pollinators and birds. This landscape behind me right here is a 1/4 acre lot. And with it, you can see we've got some grass to people to play in, but you can see the rest of it is something that's going to flower at some point and be a stopping point or a waypoint for either butterflies or some sort of pollinator or bird. This were to take hold in the valley, and the Salt Lake Valley were to do a lot of this, not only would we be saving 2/3 of the water we're using now, but the biodiversity would just skyrocket in those areas, and it'd be really good just for society at large. This really is a good place for most people to start. People who are like just kind of want to dip their toe into doing water-wise landscape or planting water-wise plants. The park strips are a really good place to start.
When I can give someone a kit or provide them with a butterfly release, and that inspires them to just make a little change, like instead of just having grass on my park strip, which is really hard to water and maintain, I'm just gonna do some pollinator plants.
These are purple dome asters, and in the background here are some Verbena bonarensis, and both of them are just heavy nectar plants that all pollinators love. Bees and butterflies are more generalist.
It seems like they tend to go to things that are more in the pinks and red families than the yellows. But zinnias, especially colorful zinnias, the cosmos I tend to see the butterflies flying around those particular plants. And I think that's one reason why I get caterpillars. I have a neighbor who has a big patch and she doesn't ever find as many, but she doesn't really have any flowers around her milkweed to attract the butterflies.
Bees especially, they're attracted more to blues. We see them more on blues and whites. The nocturnal pollinators like bats and moths tend to be attracted to white. Birds tend to be attracted to reds, and so, those are very general rules, but, those are good things to know. So if you're planting your garden and all you've ever wanted was hummingbirds, you need some red tubular flowers that they can get into. You can see quite a lot of butterfly bushes. Other parts of the world have problems with butterfly bush. Here in Utah, as far as invasiveness, here in Utah they are very well behaved. We don't have some of the issues that they would if we had a lot of water. So butterfly bushes are a really, really good nectar plant. So we've got early spring things that are now dormant. Our butterfly bush you can see going on. We've got our asters. Lots of things, lots of variety. And this is very important for pollinator gardens and butterflies, is there's something at all season. So if you can have a perennial garden, that's great. You just need to have something that's going on for them all the time. Down this walk, we have both host plants and nectar plants. We got to provide, if we're growing something, if we're putting together a garden for butterflies or pollinators, we want to have things that they can live on, and we want to have things that they can eat to be good stewards, good hosts. We talk a lot about flowers when we talk about pollinators. You talk about nectar, but habitat is just as important. We're a botanic garden, and I just want to point out that, our fall garden looks wild, and that's okay, and it's beautiful. And I think that this idea of changing our mind a little bit about what beauty is not boxes and control. It's about what we're providing and beauty in a larger sense. Sometimes things look a little chewed up, and it's because it's feeding these beautiful creatures, and that is special in itself. If I had to pick 3 trees or tree adjacent things, trees and shrubs, oaks, chokecherries, and willows are the things that either have the most opportunity of being a host plant for the larvae of various butterflies, or habitat like that, nestling into oaks. Native chokecherries are really good if you're really trying to make a pollinator garden. But chokecherries also bloom and are a native and are super nectar heavy at a really important time for our natives. But they're also a host plant for at least 4 different butterflies, swallowtails being one of the main ones that we see around here. And they can go life, their full life can be spent around just a little set of these trees. You see plum trees quite a lot. Fruit trees in general are really great, but plum trees, for whatever reason, like the timing of them are just spot on. For a lot of, I don't know if it's just the emerging, but you just see them covered in all sorts of pollinators, but butterflies included. When the painted ladies come through, plum trees, it's like right around that time that things tend to really like ramp up. The oaks, their leaves don't break down during our heavy winters quite as fast as other things. And it's a really, really great place for butterflies to kind of nestle in. And the ones that overwinter as adults nestle in and find a good, like, safe place. And it's safe for a long period of time. This is an area that we don't clean up leaves. We let this be a natural space so that there is habitat. We've got our Kimball oaks. We've got maples in here, grandidentatum, big tooth maples. We've got chokecherries. All of them have potential to be really powerful for our native critters that we're interacting with all the time.
This is our gateway drug on helping to inspire kids and families to have a really cool butterfly experience and learn of what they can do to be more involved with butterflies. When we provide these kits for people who want to raise their own butterflies, this is a lot more simple than making a huge pollinator garden or having live potted host plants. It's easy to ship these, it's easy for people to pick them up. You literally just put them on your shelf and watch them grow.
But it's been really fun and exciting to see more people in the neighborhood and in the city. And at school, the kids get super excited about the butterflies and being interested in them and their life cycle and just interested in the whole life process. I work in a special ed classroom, and the kids just love seeing the butterflies every year and the caterpillars. And I spread them around to different classrooms to ask other teachers if they would like them. We do actually even have a little milkweed patch at the school, so it's easy to get the milkweed to feed the little caterpillars at school. I like to read fun butterfly books to the kids at school when we have butterflies, and that's another thing you can do. And when we have them at the school, I let the kids, we have a little courtyard, and we go out into the courtyard, and different kids will get to release them, and they love it. It's so fun to see them have the butterfly on their finger, and they're so excited, and then the butterfly will just fly away and find a little flower or something like that. And now I actually have quite a few neighbors that are growing milkweed in their yards and find the butterflies and the caterpillars on their own.
Sometimes when people have milkweed, they'll get a little excited because it tends to run around on you a little bit. As you're pulling out milkweed, it's something that we do here at the garden. If you are in a certain part of the season, you really want to look for eggs, make sure that you're doing the right thing.
I guess I would find 60 to 80 eggs most years. And I feel like, if you can hatch even half of those, that's more butterflies than there would have been.
something like this is not only increasing butterfly habitat, bird habitat, bee habitats, but we're saving so much water in the process. It's good for everything, really.
And it's just a cool thing to have something so close to in such a large municipality. You know, something like this, like Red Butte, like the Conservation Garden Park, these places are just havens.
I love that aspect about this, and I hope that this can be something that we can figure out how to extend for generations to come.